All right, so we're going to be talking about the different parts of an equation. So let's first start off by defining what an equation is. An equation is going to be defined as a mathematical sentence where two expressions are equal to each other. You know you have an equation because there's going to be an equal sign. So here's an example. 4x minus 7 equals 5 plus 2x. So there's that equal sign, so we know it's an equation. So let's go back to that definition. It says that there's going to be two expressions that are equal to each other. So based off that, we know that 4x minus 7 must be an expression, and 5 plus 2x has to be another expression because they're set equal to each other. So what is an expression? Well, an expression is also a mathematical sentence with a minimum of at least two numbers and at least one math operation. And math operation meaning addition or subtraction, multiplication, division. Those are the four math operations. The difference between an expression and an equation is that an expression does not have an equal sign. All right, so another thing here that we need to talk about is this letter X. These are known as a variable. And a variable can be any letter that represents an unknown number. Most commonly used is the letter X. You'll see that come up a lot, but you could use any variable, be W, Z, anything. It's just in place of something we don't know at the moment, a number. All right, another thing here, we've got a -7 and a 5. Those are called constants. A constant is just a number that's by itself. All right, so continuing with that same equation, there's a few more things we need to cover. And you see we have 4 arrows pointing to different parts. So each of these are known as terms. And so equations are made up of many terms, and you know that that you have a term because they're going to be separated by plus or minus signs. So that's why in this case we have 4 of them. We've got 4x, -7, 5, and 2x. So there's a total of 4 terms here in this equation. We've got 2 on each side. And the last thing we haven't talked about yet is that 4 that's in front of the variable x. This is known as a coefficient. And a coefficient is going to be a number that is being multiplied by a variable. So anytime you see a number that's in front of a variable, that number is the coefficient, but whenever they're next to each other, the math operation that's happening is multiplication. So you'll see that multiplication is the only math operation where you don't actually have to write the symbol. So it's implied whenever a number and a variable are right next to each other that it's multiplication. So in this case, we want 4 times whatever value x is, whether x is 2, 1, we don't know yet. We just want to multiply that by 4. That's what that coefficient is doing. You can see on the right hand side we have another variable. There's a number in front of it, so that 2 is going to be the coefficient of that term. It's always that number in front of the variable. Let's get some more practice with being able to identify the coefficient of a term. So let's start with the term 5x. What is the coefficient of 5x? So coefficient is just the number part that's multiplying, that's being multiplied by the variable. In this case, the number is 5. We're doing 5 times x, so the coefficient is 5. What about -2y? What is the coefficient? In this case, we're taking the number -2 and we're multiplying by the variable y. So the coefficient is -2. Make sure to always include the sign that's in front of it. So if it's negative, include that negative. What about 1/2 w? What is the coefficient? Well, we're taking w and we're going to be multiplying by that number 1/2. So the coefficient is 1/2. What about the term x? This one's a little different. Usually we see a number that's in front of the variable, but here I don't see any number. There's only the variable by itself. So what do you think? So anytime you see a variable that's by itself, this is what we call invisible math. Well, how many x's do you see? Well, there's only one x. So anytime a variable is by itself, it's implied that the coefficient is 1. We just don't have to write it. Okay, so let's try one more, negative x. So what do you think the coefficient is of negative x? Well, it's similar to the one above it. There's no number there that's in front of the variable, but we know that there's that indivisible 1. So in this case, the coefficient is a -1.